Hi, everybody. It's me, April Henry, back for another Facebook Live. I'll be doing these at least this week, and I did them all last week at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I then repost them on my webpage, aprilhenry.com, and to my YouTube channel, is also called April Henry. Um, I My plan is to do it all this week, and I think I'll be doing them for the duration or until I run out of topics. If you have any questions you want to ask, go ahead and ask them over to the side, and I'll get to them either today or later. Today's shirt is another Mirkatsu uh, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu rash guard. This one is the Queen of Hearts. I bought it off of eBay because I'm cheap and someone was selling it there, so I got it for less than retail. Today's makeup is Burt's Bees, some kind of colored lipstick that I found, and for some reason I accidentally ordered this Age Perfect mascara. I don't know why you need a different mascara when you're old, but I guess when you have a market that is saturated, you have to start dividing off little sections of it. So today I'm going to be talking about research. And if you have a question, you can post it now, and I'll either get to it today or I will get to it later. Um, I right before I started doing this, I got super excited. A new book called Two Truths and a Lie about two groups of teens that are on their way to a theater conference, and they are stranded during a blizzard. It's kind of based on something that happened to me about a year ago when I was stranded in Nebraska during a blizzard at a literary conference in a Ramada Inn version of The Shining. So um, what I got excited by was I just started finding all these documentaries on YouTube and other places where teens had recorded what their experiences were preparing for a play or a high school musical. And so I'm going to spend today watching those. I also ordered something off Amazon called Thespians, a documentary from 2010 that I couldn't find a way to purchase or find a way to stream. So I had to purchase it, and it was kind of expensive, but I'll write it off at the end of the year. Um, so for me, that would be one of the first things to do to start researching. I'm going to start with probably the craziest story of anything I've ever done for research. About 4 years ago, almost exactly, me and another thriller author named Hannah Jane went to Los Angeles for a class that I had read about in United In-Flight magazine called Urban Escape and Invasion. We were the first writers to ever take the class. But people who normally take the class were like journalists or people who work overseas or do mission trips overseas in really unstable poor countries where they might look at you and think you're an American, you're rich, I'm going to kidnap you and hold you hostage. Then there's another group of people who take the class who are preppers, like they believe the world is coming to an end, and those people are doing great right now. And then there's a small percentage of people who take the class who are on the crazy end of the spectrum. So I asked Hannah, Jayne, another thriller author, if she would take the class with me so that at the end of the class I would not have to partner up with a crazy person because I knew you partnered up. We spent 3 days in a hotel room in a travel lodge in downtown LA learning how to get out of duct tape, out of rope, out of zip ties, and out of handcuffs. And we also learned how to pick locks, how to steal cars, how to make fake ID, how to tell if you're being followed, how to make an improvised weapon. And then the last day, you are kidnapped out of a Denny's parking lot in downtown LA and nobody calls the police. So um, we had to use everything we'd learned to escape. We had a route that we were told we had to go. And the trick was there were 10 hunters who had photos of what we were wearing when we went into the van, and they were hunting us, and they knew exactly where we were going to be, and their job was to find us, and our job was to walk past them and have them not notice us. It is actually, when you're doing it, is very frightening. It feels very real. A bored person talking on their cell phone looks exactly like somebody who is reporting that they've spotted you, and then you stare at them and you're nervous and they look back at you and they're trying to figure out why you're staring at them, and then they look even more like somebody who's hunting you. Um, we were able not to get caught, and I use that research all the time. So to create a fictional world that feels real, you need to do your research. And so for me, the first step is going to be reading. I'm going to get not only books, but I'm also going to look for articles to find out more about what I'm writing about. In my book, The Lonely Dead, there's a character who has died on the Oregon Trail, and she is a ghost and talking to someone, and I wanted that character to sound like people who were on the Oregon Trail really sounded like. So I went to the end of the Oregon Trail Museum and I got a bunch of books from the library that were Oregon Trail diaries that had been published later. And I also looked at what words were in use when, just for these few sentences that this girl said, so they would not be incorrect for how people talked in 1850. Um, for my book Blood Will Tell, I interviewed a DNA expert, but to start with, I did a lot of reading about DNA. If you're going to take up somebody's time, especially someone who's an expert like that, you do not want to start by saying, explain DNA to me. You want to start by learning as much as you can so that you can ask intelligent questions. Um, Reading is also a great way to add sensory details that you normally don't want to personally experience. Like if I want to write about a character who almost dies drowning in the ocean, I am not going to go do it myself. I'm going to read someone's first person account of that. Or for the book that's coming out, I guess now in July, The Girl in the White Van, that book, I wanted to know what's it feel like when a dog bites you really badly. Well, I'm not going to go get bitten by a dog, so I read people's first person accounts of that. And if you just spend enough time Googling, you can find the words that will give you those results. I also, after I read, I like to start asking. People usually like to talk about their jobs or their hobbies, and somebody who's already done a bit of research is going to ask interesting questions. So I might take somebody to lunch or coffee and say things like, what was your funniest case, or your scariest, or your favorite? What's been the biggest surprise about your job, something that you didn't expect? What's the best part of your job, or the worst? And what's one thing that books or TV always get wrong? Like when I was researching Girls Stolen, I asked blind people what's something that people get wrong, and they said in movies it's often shown that a blind person will ask another person, usually a loved interest, if they can touch their face. And then they start touching it, and it's a very moving moment, and I guess you're supposed to believe that they are visualizing that person's face. But blind people tell me they do not secretly want to touch your face, that people will say to them, hey, you can touch my face, it's okay. And if you think about where your fingers might end up, it's probably not something you would want to do if you were blind. Um, I also present specific problems to people I'm interviewing. I've asked, well, wait, if I'm in this, I asked a security door guy, if I was in this space with a locked door, is there a way to get around it? I asked a therapist friend, if somebody told you that they could talk to the dead, how would you respond? For the girl in the white van, I asked my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu instructor what a concussion felt like. So some places to find sources besides online, if you have a Sisters in Crime near you, they usually have monthly meetings with experts. And I'm also part of an online group called Crime Scene Writers. It's a Google group that has lots of retired law enforcement and other personnel who are willing to answer questions. And I've had really good luck just emailing experts I find online. So you read, you ask, but your imagination can only take you so far. And so are there things that you can try out yourself? I have laid down for the girl in the white van. I put these handcuffs on and I laid down on my office floor and I pretended like I was knocked out, and I was going to write how her body was laying, and then when I tried to move my body in that position, it didn't work like that at all. It was kind of awkward because my husband walked in the middle of me lying down on the floor with handcuffs on, trying to imagine that I was passed out, but I explained it to him and he's used to me by now. When I was writing Girl Stolen, I went to the guide dog school for the blind and spent a day there and asked all kinds of questions. So for the girl I used to be, I put on a pair of handcuffs and ran through a woods and made mental notes about what it felt like to run in handcuffs through the woods. Um, for the girl in the white van, I have some girls who are in a mobile home and they need to get out. And in mobile homes, often have a vent that is held on with Phillips screws. So I found a Phillips screw in my house, and I tried various household items to see if anything else could be used to open a Phillips screw besides a Phillips screwdriver. So it turns out that actually a potato peeler works really well. I also visited a pick and pull yard to see what kind of things they had there that I could, if a character ends up in a junkyard, is there something she could use to fight back with? And it turns out it's a cornucopia of things you could use to fight back with. So, one small but deeply meaningful way to try it out yourself is just go throughout your day and think of what are things, how would your character view what's happening to you right now? If you go for a walk and you're an assassin or a thief, you're going to look at things in a different way than you yourself are going to look at them. And it just gives you a new way to look at things. A long time ago, my Kung Fu instructor took us to a park and told us to look around and think of who we would steal money from if we had to steal money. And it made me look at everybody in a new way and see their vulnerabilities and see who would be a good person to target. So, the last piece of advice, besides read and ask people and trying it yourself, is to take a class. There's lots of interesting classes out there. 2 years ago, I spent a week at a program called Launchpad, which is for science fiction writers who want to get their astronomy right. It turns out that I am not as interested as the other people are in being correct about like what's it like to have a planet with two suns. I probably am not going to write that kind of book, but for those people, it was great. I've taken classes in firearms, knife fighting, knife throwing, close combat, self-defense, blind self-defense, active shooter response. I've attended the FBI Citizens Academy, and your local police department probably has a Citizens Academy as well as ride-alongs that you can go on once COVID-19 has receded. I've taken classes with teenage volunteers at Multnomah County Sheriff's Office Search and Rescue. So don't rely on your best guess. Don't rely on making stuff up or using something that you saw on TV, which is so frequently wrong. You owe it to your readers and to yourself to get it right. So those are my basic tips for making your writing better with research. And then join me tomorrow, Wednesday, and I will be talking about agents and how to get one. And again, you can watch previous videos on aprilhenry.com. Thank you.